one of the things that I want to talk about is how the permit action before you works in concert with the coal combustion resistance. The permit action for consideration today concerns Dominion Virginia Power Chesterfield Power Station, and one element of this permit action addresses the initial steps Dominion must take to close out ash ponds under the new federal and state CCR rule. And the first step in closing out those ponds is removing the water from the ponds. A little bit of background. Coal ash was an issue that was on EPA's radar back in the 2000s, and in fact, at the end of 2008, there was a large coal ash spill that occurred at the Tennessee Valley Authority's power plant in Kingston, Tennessee, and it occurred because of the failure of a pond. This spill prompted EPA to take a look around the country at coal ash surface impoundments and gather information as to the integrity of those existing impoundments, and also look at the management of coal ash nationwide. In 2010, EPA took another step regarding coal ash in that they proposed regulations under RCRA to address the risks that they had covered in this evaluation. And while this rulemaking was actually in process, we experienced the impact of a coal ash impoundment breach. It was the Dam River. The facility was actually in North Carolina, but we were on the downstream receiving the coal ash. The rule that the feds finally adopted in 2015 establishes nationwide minimum criteria for the disposal of CCR in landfills and surface impoundments. Under this final rule, it provides the operational and closure standards for new and existing surface impoundments. It provides two closure options to the facilities, either capping in place or removal. No matter what of those two choices the facility chooses, that first step is removal of the water in the ponds. Your colleagues on the Virginia Waste Management Board adopted and incorporated the federal final rule in December of 2015, and it provides the technical requirements for closure and post-closure surface impoundments, and more importantly, it puts that process into a permit. So, the solid waste permit, which has not yet been issued, but will be, for this site, will include review and approval of cap or closure, groundwater monitoring, necessary surface water monitoring, cost estimates, financial assurance, if there's a cap, post-closure cap maintenance, and a full permitting public participation process. I wanted to just take a minute, because as I know you are aware, this is not the first time we have brought what we call a coal ash permit to you for your consideration. There's several items, though, concerning the Chesterfield Power Plant that are different from the other permits that we brought before you. First of all, the power station is continuing to combust coal. The other plants either had already transitioned to natural gas. One may not even have been operating, I can't recall. And the facility is actually transitioning to dry ash handling. So, along with closing out the existing wet ponds, they have to build a treatment system, and they will be landfilling ash and then handle it dry. So, in addition to that, there's a number of operational modifications that are triggered by this transition. The lower ash pond, and you're going to hear a lot of details when Fred comes up and steps through the permit, it currently serves as the treatment unit for all non-contact cooling water streams. So as that pond is closed out, what you'll see in the permit is a lot of information about putting in treatment for other waste streams, which are no longer going to go through the lower ash pond because it's going to be closed out. The other thing that's a little unique about this permit, it's a reissuance. It's not an amendment. Several of the other permits that we brought to you were very targeted permit amendments to address the ash pond dewatering. This is actually a permit reissuance that covers numerous operational activities of the plant. We are incorporating a number of complicated technical and regulatory issues into this permit, and for existing operations will incorporate a number of regulatory updates. So you're going to hear from Fred about flue gas desulfurization. You're going to hear about thermal variance. You're going to hear about 316B and impingement and entrainment. You're going to hear about all kinds of complicated explanations of internal outfalls and what's going into existing outfalls. And there's a whole lot of stuff in this permit that is in fact not coal ash related, but is a result of the changes they're making to the site in order to close out the coal ash pond. So hopefully that kind of sets the stage, because as I've listened to people to the conversations about this permit, there are moments when my head starts to spin. So we will walk you through the permit. It's a fairly long presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to Greg Cunningham to do that, who is our manager of water permits.
Good morning. Chairman Dunn, members of the board, my name is Greg Cunningham. Good morning, Chairman Dunn, members of the board. My name is Greg Cunningham, the Director of Office of Water Permits, and today I'll be making the staff presentation for the reissuance of DPDS permit number BA 0004146, Chesterfield Power Station. Today I'll discuss some background information as well as permit conditions pertaining to the facility, public participation process in the reissuance, major concerns raised by this process, and DEQ's response to those areas of concern. A major component of the permit reissuance addresses the dewatering of the ash ponds associated with the CCR rule. As Melanie has pointed out, the ultimate disposition of the ash pond solid waste content and long-term groundwater management are subject of DEQ's solid waste permitting program and will not be addressed in this presentation. Since this is a reissuance, there are also a number of other significant issues that will be discussed. There are new federal effluent guidelines for technology use for the steam electric power plants that the permit includes. There's new federal water intake requirements included in the permit to protect aquatic life. And finally, I'll be discussing permit conditions related to the thermal impact of the discharge. The applicant is Dominion Virginia Power. This permit action is the reissuance of the Vifty's permit for discharge of once through condenser cooling water, stormwater, and industrial wastewater. The industrial wastewater includes metal cleaning wastewater, flue gas desulfurization wastewater, landfill leachate, and other low-volume wastes, as well as the wastewater from the dewatering activities to facilitate the closure of the coal ash pond. The facility has been in operation since 1945, and the various units still in operation burn coal or natural gas and distillate oil. Since the last permit reissuance, a flue gas desulfurization unit has been installed to address air emissions on the coal-fired units. This unit utilizes effluent from the nearby Parker's Creek wastewater treatment plant as makeup water for the operation of the flue gas desulfurization system. Also, in 2016, the solid waste permit was issued for the construction of a coal combustion residual landfill. This is being constructed for the transition of the dry handling of the coal once that takes place. This draft permit includes effluent limitations and monitoring requirements associated with the cooling water discharges, the actual ash pond operation prior to the drawdown and dewatering, and then requirements once drawdown and dewatering starts. And then, as I indicated earlier, there are numerous other waste streams on site, including the low volume waste, that are addressed as part of this permit. In addition to that, there's other requirements that address the cooling water intake structure, thermal impacts, ash pond closure, stormwater management, and the continuation of groundwater monitoring of treatment units not associated with the ash ponds. The ash ponds monitoring is going to be handled through the solid waste business. Again, this permit, there's several things it does not address. The ultimate closure of the coal ash ponds, as Ellen has indicated, changes to the coal ash ponds' existing groundwater monitoring, corrective action, and/or risk assessment plans. Stormwater management not related to the closure of the ash ponds. There's a separate site-wide stormwater, separately site-wide stormwater is addressed through an individual stormwater general permit. Next, I'd like to discuss just what the current ash pond operation is. Historically, the mode of CCR management involved weighing down the ash and sluicing the mixture to the lower ash pond located on the site. This pond provided settling for the ash, and also provided treatment for the other waste streams generated by the facility. Solids dredged from the lower ash pond were placed in the upper ash pond for further dewatering. As you know, EPA's CCR rule mandates the closure of ash ponds, closure of these ponds, and the conversion to a dry means of disposal of future CCRs are subject to the separate solid waste permit and are not addressed in this permit. Important to note that irrespective of the means of disposal of these residuals in the ash ponds, the process of dewatering the residuals as regulated under this permit, draft permit, will still be necessary. The next several slides are going to address the development of effluent limitations and special conditions pertaining to the operation and closure of the ash ponds. But before we get into that, I think the first step is really to talk about the definition and what we mean by pond drawdown and dewatering. Drawdown is the treatment and discharge of all standing water in the pond. Dewatering is the treatment and discharge of the water trapped in the pores between the particles of the settled solids in the pond. So essentially, that operation is necessary to dry out the pond. As far as effluent limitations, during the drawdown and dewatering, both the lower and upper ash ponds are subject to water quality phase limits comparable to those in effect at the Bremer and Possum Point facilities. We use the same approach for Chesterfield as we did with those facilities. Our limits development include evaluation of the parameters known to be present in the cold combustion residuals. We use a conservative 2-to-1 mixing of the effluent in the James River for this discharge. And the other thing we did, similar to the previous permits that have been issued, the parameters were conservatively assumed to be present at concentrations that will require effluent limitations. And what I mean by that is EPA, as well as DEQ in other states, looks at the reasonable potential for every parameter to cause a violation of water quality standards. For this particular discharge, we increased those levels so that it forced a reasonable potential and forced a limit. Our standards procedures don't require that, so this is another more conservative approach we take. Some additional conditions. The effluent limitation become effective once drawdown starts and will continue until the dewatering ends. 3 per week monitoring is required for all water quality-based limitations. The agency has established upfront full effluent toxicity limits. There's a requirement for prompt reporting of results. The facility is required to receive analysis within 4 business days of when the sample is collected. And there's weekly sampling reports that are due to DEQ Friday following the week of the previous weekly sampling event. Again, these conditions are similar to the ones that were established for both Greenville and Possum Point. There's also a separate condition that requires ceasing the discharge. Any monitoring during the drawdown and dewatering activity that exceeds the established effluent limitations requires immediate ceasing of the discharge once the results are known. The facility is then required to review their treatment options and their data and to identify the cause and initiate corrective action. Prior to starting the discharge again, the facility is required to submit an evaluation report to DEQ for our approval. It's only after that they're allowed to continue operation. There's also a condition associated with pond closure drawdown rates. The drawdown is limited to 2 feet per day and was developed by the Department of Conservation and Recreation Dam Safety Division's recommendation to minimize the risk of dam stability issues during the drawdown. As I mentioned earlier, these activities associated with the pond closure are only part of the issues related to this proposed permit. At this time, I'd like to give you an overview of the facility operation, other proposed treatment changes, and special conditions. I thought it would be helpful just to give you a quick overview of current outfalls. Outfalls 001 and 002, which are on the top of your screen, discharge cooling water to the James River. Outfall 003, down here, discharges cooling water to the head of Farragut. Outfalls 4 and 5, again, on the bottom of the screen here, are the discharges from the coal ash ponds. On top of the screen, there's outfalls 006 through 011. They are associated with backwash waters with the water intake structure. And finally, there's one internal outfall associated with metal cleaning waste. That is outfall 104. So again, the main point of this slide is just to give you some perspective in terms of the current outfall structure. The facility is undergoing a series of wastewater treatment upgrades. Some of these upgrades are the result of the conversion from wet ash handling to dry ash handling. Some to meet water quality standards. Others are in response to the new federal effluent guidelines for steam electric power plants. I'm sure you noted in the permit that the permit contains 13 separate effluent limitation and monitoring requirement pages. These requirements are contained in pages 1 through 20 of Part A of the permit, Part 1A of the permit. These limitations are necessary to transition the facility from its current operation to the final effluent limitations in the permit. These final effluent limitations are based on new federal effluent guidelines for steam electric or requirements to ensure water quality standards are met in the stream. Now, just looking at the outfalls 001 to 003 are the same as the current operation, and we'll be discharging contact cooling with cooling water. Outfalls 004 and 005 are temporary, but they will occur in this proposed permit until the drawdown and dewatering starts. And then in the middle of this the map, there's a series of 300 level internal outfalls. I'm going to be talking about those in a little more detail. But from outfall 301 to 305, 302 to 305 will have their own treatment by the final permit, with final limits, which will then discharge into the treatment associated with outfall 301. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that in the next few slides. And again, outfalls 004 and 005 from coal ash ponds on the bottom of the stream are going to be eliminated as part of the drawdown and dewatering process. One final note is we talked about the coal ash dewatering and drawdown. That's right in here. There's an outfall 101. That's an internal outfall that's associated with the treatment plant associated with that activity. And the permit allows that discharge to go through the external outfalls of 001 or 002. But the limits that I talked about earlier are in place on that internal discharge of 120. Okay. This table is just trying to point out that for the cooling water discharges, they're essentially going to be the same. It's going to be outfalls 001 through 003. It's important to note that these flows exceed 1 billion gallons per day when the facility is operating at the rated capacity and will continue to discharge cooling water in the reissued permit. The point of this slide, the first part of this slide, is really just to make it clear the operation of the settling ponds. If you look at the second column, initially, prior to the dry ash handling and the operation of the low volume wastewater treatment plant, those process waters will go into the lower ash pond for settling and discharge through outfall 004 and 005. Again, that aspect of the operation will be the same as the current permit until they're able to transition the facility and put in the additional treatments. So the trigger for stopping those discharges to the lower and upper ash ponds is really the dry ash handling and the establishment of the low volume waste treatment plant. Once they switch to the dry ash handling, then the permit requires, once they start drawing down the dewatering, the permit requires the advanced treatment and the discharge through alcohol 001, which we had previously discussed. There's a flow limit there of 5 million gallons per day. The bottom part of this table is just pointing out that the existing outfalls for 006 through 011, which is the screen backwash from the water intake structure, is no longer necessary and will not be permitted because they will no longer be chlorinating that discharge. This table outlines wastewater and treatment discharged to state waters through the internal outfalls. Remember, under the current permit, all the wastewaters you see on this table go into the lower ash pond for treatment and then are discharged. So again, initially, prior to dry ash handling in the low volume wastewater treatment plant, they're going to continue to go through the lower ash pond. The one exception to that, you'll note, is the leachate and stormwater from landfill. Remember that facility was constructed for the dry ash handling. So it's really not going to start to have any discharge until that process begins. So that's why it's not happening. If you look at the first category, closed drain watering from the ash pond, station, car wash, water treatment, wastewater, stream backwash from Proctor Creek wastewater treatment plant, and the flue gas desulfurization stormwater runoff. The final limits require that those discharges go to the low volume waste treatment plant and then discharge through internal outfall 301 and eventually go to the external outfall of 003. For flue gas desulfurization, ultimately they are required to put in treatment and then discharge through outfall 302. And from there, that also goes to the low volume wastewater treatment plant and discharges through 301 for a second level of treatment. The same is true for the metal cleaning wastewater and the coal pile runoff. Permit has got treatment for both of those, then the discharge through their internal outfall, and then it goes to the low volume wastewater treatment plant for additional treatment before discharging through the external outfall of 003. Now for the leachate and stormwater from the landfill, the agency has allowed the company some flexibility. They can do one of two things. They can combine that discharge with their treatment necessary for the flue gas desulfurization wastewater and have everything go through internal outfall 302, be treated and then go through internal outfall 302. Or they have the option of having a separate treatment unit just for the leachate that would then go to the low volume wastewater treatment plant 301 for the treatment. This is really just a summary of what I just said. Several of the waste streams to be discharged to the low volume wastewater treatment plant are subject to the new effluent guidelines and will receive upfront treatment prior to them going to the low volume wastewater treatment plant or treatment system for additional treatment. In addition to that, the low-volume wastewater treatment system is subject to water quality-based effluent limitations. We took the same, we took our normal approach. Parameters known to be present in these wastewaters were evaluated. The water quality criteria must be met at the point of discharge to the gut without in-stream mixing. And these parameters were evaluated using data submitted by Dominion for the various constituent waste streams. The agency flow-weighted averaged these using the highest concentrations from the respective streams. And this was used to determine the reasonable potential analysis and the water quality-based limitations. Again, this is our normal procedure for establishing those types of limits. Given the number of changes being undertaken, the proposed permit contains a new requirement that Dominion evaluate the process water conveyance system for potential unauthorized discharges. All right. I skipped the slide. Excuse me. The permit also clarifies that monitoring and reporting requirements before the commencement of the discharge of the low-volume wastewater treatment system. The first day of the discharge will be used as a trigger date for other permit conditions. You will notice that on the Part 1A pages, a lot of it is contingent on the operation of the low-volume waste treatment system. Next item, effluent requires worst-case concentrations developed to conduct a regional potential analysis for the 301 alcohol. The staff believes additional updated data is necessary to confirm the characterization once this treatment effluent is actually discharged. This data will be submitted no later than 90 days following the commencement of the discharge from alcohol 301. So we're going to collect some additional, they're going to be required to provide us some additional information. Given the number of changes being undertaken, the proposed permit contains new requirement that Dominion evaluate processed water